We'll start this off.
Yeah, I've already pressed record. So
I guess we better do this.
Too late now. Off like this.
I'm hungry. Let's go get something to eat.
Okay, well, good day to you. This is William Stringer. This is the Edible Valley podcast.
I am Chef Jonathan Fraser, and once again, we're here to talk about food in the Comox Valley and a little bit about an old market.
Let's do this thing.
Welcome to the Edible Valley podcast.
We want to invite you as we embark on a culinary journey through the heart of Vancouver Island
From the fertile fields,
to the pristine waters of the Pacific Ocean.
we'll explore the stories behind the food that nourishes us.
Tune in to each episode as we deep dive into the flavors, the traditions, and the innovations that make this a true paradise.
Now please join us as we explore our Edible Valley.
So it's Courtenay Country Market. Courtenay Country Market. What do those three words mean to you? Had to count Courtenay Country. Yes, that is three words. Now, it means a lot to me because when I landed as an immigrant in this country, I came straight over from Vancouver Airport, landed on the island, and I'd actually lived in Merville. So I was always driving past on my way to the Atlas Cafe, which I worked at the time. And I went in there a few times. And I just thought, this is this really cool, old school, rustic grocery store. At first, I thought that was like the town grocery store. I was like, my God, this place is small. But I did actually love it. Anyway, so we're talking about that today. But we have a very special guest. It is the former owner of the Courtenay Country Market. He is Dean Garrett. Welcome, Dean.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes.
So I know Dean as I'm a realtor. He's actually a mortgage broker, a fantastic mortgage broker. He is always around Royal LePage in the Comox Valley. And so, you know, everyone goes to him for advice and things like that. So I've grown close to Dean through that, and he's now my mortgage broker as well, as of 2.5 hours ago.
Perfect.
So, you know, it's going to be great to have you on the show. Yeah, it's John.
Well, and we're going to spin off because you have a long history in this community with food, right? Like you
Right.
got in and started this market, right?
Right. It was 1995. March 10th, 1995 is when my wife at the time and myself opened the store. We had two little kids. We had a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, and just moved to the valley to open the store. We had been, I had a background in groceries before that.
You were coming
I'll
from off
start
the
there.
island?
Yeah, I grew up in Powell River.
Okay.
Of all places. So,
Oh, wow. Okay,
so
nice.
for us, Vancouver Island was the big city.
Yeah.
Moving up in the world.
And you could always see it anywhere you drove in Powell River. You can see over the pond, and there was the Comox Valley, right?
That's so
always
funny.
wanted to move to the island. We had operated the Super Value in that town for 15 years as a family. That was my first job, and I ended up partner in the company and managing the store. And so it was quite
Wow.
you know,
1995.
yeah. So that's when we left there.
Yeah.
So I started in groceries in 1980.
Wow.
And I graduated in 82 and was store manager in 84. So it was kind of, you know how that works. Great help from the parents, but they were happy to let me do as much as I could, right?
Oh, that's
So it was
amazing.
less
Yeah.
for them, but
Now there is so much to running a grocery store.
this is it. Yeah, that's the exciting part. Is
Yeah.
that it's much like the restaurant business. It's
Right.
24/7.
Absolutely.
And anywhere you go, you have to be in touch. You never know when your refrigeration is going to pack it in for an undisclosed period of time.
Yeah.
Or when
yeah.
when your checkout's shut down, or you know, there's so many systems to the whole place.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
with all of the skills and departments and categories that we're in, it was very dynamic, very exciting in
Yeah.
so many
Great.
ways. Yeah.
So what drove you to that spot?
Well, it was my first job.
Drove you to the
Courtenay Country Market?
Yeah, when you came over to the
it was
island here.
opportunity.
Really?
Yeah, I was at the time. We had sold the store in Powell River, and I decided that was when I was going to make my move off of the island of Powell River onto Vancouver Island, and I went to work for the great folks at Quality Foods, and they came with a big Super Value background into their first store in Qualicum back in 82, I think it was, right around the time I started doing what I was doing. And so I knocked on their door and they said, yep, come on in, right? So I worked for them for 6 months. We'd moved the family to Nanaimo. And at that time, that's when the owners of the land there at Courtenay Country Market, they had a falling out with IGA, because it was an IGA at that time.
That's right.
And they showed up on the doorstep at Quality Foods and said, hey, we've got this store, needs an operator. Do you have anyone that's interested? Are you guys interested?
So I'm kind of the layman guy. What is an operator in this? Like, we need someone to own it or run it, or like a management team?
So I ended up taking the lease from the landlord.
Okay.
And one thing about the business is you need to have the connection with all your suppliers and bankers and everything it takes to operate a business like that, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's where Ken Shelley and his partners at Quality Foods, they called me into the office and said, Dean, we've got this opportunity. Would you be interested in moving it forward? And I said, yep.
You dove on that one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. I loved working with them in their stores, and they became, in that relationship, they were my main supplier.
Okay.
And I was able to. They offered me their backing for relationships in buying power and pricing for all of the ancillary suppliers and things like that. So it's
that must have been a real help.
It really was, yeah.
Yeah, because reaching out, the food networking is mind-boggling if you think about it sometimes. And
it's perishable goods, right?
It disappears. Yeah. It goes bad so quickly, and so it's always a challenge to be on top of it.
Yeah, and if you've got the cash, you can back a lot of yourself, but it would take a tremendous amount. So, to get the buying power with the dairy companies, Dairyland at that time, Island Farms, and it's difficult because 30 days, 60 days, 90 days late, that's a big bill that they might not be getting paid. And they've been doing that for a long time. So they don't get involved, right? So they were the boys at Quality Foods were very helpful at that time.
Wow.
And without them. And then, we cleaned up the store, stocked it to the roof and opened the doors. And, it was funny while we were doing that. I was actually, because the family had lived in Nanaimo, I was actually put a bed in the back room, and that's where I lived for 5 weeks in between when I arrived and when we opened the doors, right?
Really?
What was interesting is that just about any time of the day, people were pulling on the door.
Oh, really?
Because,
to try and come in?
To try and come in, because they had heard the store was opening soon.
Yeah.
It hadn't been closed for that long, so it just cemented the reality that is a neighborhood or store location, right? It's well zoning. It's one of the only zoned areas for that type of an operation for that community out in North Courtenay.
Yeah.
So
I was just gonna say, I want you to describe how you set the store up originally. You get a vision of what it was like, and maybe a little bit of what it is now.
Right.
But it's always been that sort of as soon as you get out of Courtenay, like just as you're leaving, getting up the Mission Hill there, that's it, right? The next place until you get up to Merville Black Creek. So
it's right across from the Sunnydale Golf Course.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're coming off the golf course, there's a place to grab some food, and then you have it's sort of that niche little market there for everything.
It's a busy road. It's the connector road for the entire community up there. So it was well located, right?
Yeah.
So that was the first thing, is that once we turned the tills on and started it, that demand just was natural, and people were coming in. And so I brought with me, essentially a couple levels up of experience of operating a store with higher volumes and bigger markets and full flyers, insertions into newspapers and all of that kind of mentality. And same with the in-store promotions. We had a full listing of supermarket. The shelves were 7 feet tall, and they were full length, and there was 10 aisles in the store. Plus a full bakery, produce department, and meat department, and deli. Yeah, it was quite different than what you see today, and that's more we can talk about. But I had, I guess, during my era there was before Costco opened, and that kind of changed the dynamics of how people shop for groceries, right? When you couple Superstore, Costco, and Walmart into the marketplace, that's where people will push a buggy around and
Right.
gather more of their needs, right?
Yeah.
But if you live in North Courtenay and you run out of fresh produce or other things, meats, baked goods and things like that, you're not going to drive all the way to those centers, especially all the way south town, right?
Yeah,
So,
for Walmart. Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
to pick up a few things. So there's a good business to be had. But
And I have to
yeah.
admit, now that I'm teaching up in Campbell River,
Yeah.
that's my route every day. So
Right.
now it's on the way home, and
Right.
and it's like, oh, we need this for dinner, just a
Yeah.
small item. It's great just to pull in and just grab that little product, right? Yeah.
So that's the
super quick.
opportunity for the operator, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think at this time, since if we include the owners of the operation before I was there, and they had an IGA, so I think there was a small convenience type operation there before that, and I never saw any pictures or anything. It was Lloyd's Nursery. It used to be like a nursery was on the property. There were some old greenhouses and things like that. And then it was Budget Foods for about 10 years or so.
What year are we in roughly?
That would be in the 70s.
Okay.
Right?
When was it actually formed?
Yeah.
I mean,
Or
was
the
it formed
80s.
when
Yeah.
was the actual business? When did it open up as a grocery store?
I would say in the 80s
Okay.
with the Moore family.
Right.
And they owned that property right up until its recent ownership that's in place. And they've probably been there about 10 years or so now.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. But the operation of the stores, so the Moores operated it, and then it was an IGA. Then they leased the store to me and my wife. I sold it to a couple from Edmonton. So they came in and tried their hand at the business. They were there for 5 years, I guess. They left. The Moores took it back over. One of the sons, Brent and Maria, they took the store, and this is the big turning point, is they renovated it, reinvigorated it.
What year was this?
That would have been 2012, 2012.
I remember this. Okay. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to say almost 2013
Right.
because they had it for 10 years and they sold it to the new ownership that has it today. But they were there 10 years to the day. From when, actually, they had it the many months before, but the day they opened, I think it was 10 years later. And correct me if I'm wrong, Brent, Maria, but that's the story I remember. But their era was remarkable because they had to recognize how the business had changed from back when they operated it with a meat department, bakery, deli, and et cetera, as a supermarket. That era is changed because of the bigger box stores, bulk buying and things like that. You need to serve other needs.
Yeah.
And that's where they put in that cafe, the
And
Courtenay Country
yeah.
Market Cafe.
You become more of a
I
community
couldn't
hub.
believe what they were offering for their menu. It was very generous servings with
Yeah.
great food.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
way
I've had
everybody
many a good meal
described
there.
it, right?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
The fried chicken, the pierogies, the fish and chips.
Yeah.
And on,
Yeah.
I think it was Wednesday or Tuesday. Yeah, the specials.
And they
Yeah.
took all the aisles because they were built tall to hold a larger inventory. That wasn't necessary anymore. People weren't going there for canned sardines and things like that. It was just those items ended up not turning. So they changed the inventory of it, made it more convenience, focused on those things and great deals, and it's tough. They really put their sweat into it, and then they were successfully able to sell their business and move on. And that was just about a year ago, I think. They did that.
I was just going to say, I'd like to go back. Like when you started, how many employees did you start with?
We had a solid core of 13 or 14 employees.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it was 1997, so 2 years after we opened, and we're trying to operate along, and we're always searching for the next level of volume. And it never came. So we were always kind of trying to what I found I was doing was spending my customers' money, the customers who were coming in who were pulling on the door anyway,
Yeah.
who really needed us, and taking the profits that I was getting from them and using them to try and entice other people to come from afar.
Right.
And that was a mistake.
It just didn't
wasn't.
happen.
Yeah, it wasn't very fair to the customers who needed me.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't making any money.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Trying to get people to come from other places. But one thing. So what happened was the UFCW in 1997, the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, went on strike. and it closed Safeway and Overweighty here in Courtenay.
Oh, right. I remember.
And they were the only ones.
That changed our business overnight.
Really?
We tripled our business for 6 weeks.
Wow.
So, which was very welcoming because I was able to pay everything off and get things organized again, and then go forward with some new plans and recognition, right? So,
did you take on any new customers permanently as a result of that?
well, yeah. I mean, some customers. One thing in promotion that really worked well for a small store was keep the message consistent and exciting. And I went with a marketing program for the meat department. We had a full-size meat department in there with a great big long counter and the auxiliary freezers and deli wall, if you will. And so we had lots of capacity, and we really focused on that. And I came up with, instead of running every week, trying to find different promotions, different specials on different things, everything from packaged bacon to liver. How do you promote, right? And what I came up with was a marketing idea. I didn't invent this, but it became our staple was buy one, get one free meats.
Really?
So most of the counter was, and what I found too, in the years leading up to that is people weren't coming in, they weren't buying one steak or two steaks. They were buying the big packs. Almost all the time. They had bigger families to feed, I guess, in North Courtenay, right?
Yeah.
So our companies coming or things like that, right?
Houses, yeah.
So we took the big pack pricing and we were able to come up with a buy one, get one free program. So we were able to market the program and just put the deals throughout the counter.
Wow.
And people were coming in and half filling grocery buggies with meat.
Wow.
All the way from Zabellas to other places. So we had knowing what I knew a lot of statistics about groceries with my background. And our distribution of meat sales to the rest of the store would have made anybody envious.
Really?
Yeah. So it worked out really well. And that became our thing. We had a jingle with the radio stations I'm stuck on his name.
Don't mention any other radio station.
No. It was the fella who sang the jingle. He's passed away. And Danny Bell.
Danny Bell.
People in the area
would you like to sing it?
No, I can't sing, and I'm not allowed to because anybody around me would remind me that I am not allowed to sing. So that's not going to happen.
That's fair.
Yeah. Danny Bell was a singer and quite the entertainer, and he would frequent my store all the time.
Nice.
So I put him to work, and he built a jingle that went for my marketing on radio. And the radio advertising was epic. It was the secret bullet.
Yeah, I mean, we say this, and a great opportunity to thank, as always, 98.9 Jet FM, the Comox Valley's best rock. We are using their state-of-the-art downtown studios, and we will very shortly be on Jet FM's website. They've got a podcast section, Community Voices, and we are going to be featuring on that really soon.
Be talking about food on that.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. But in terms of radio advertising, it won't surprise you that I'm a big proponent of it, because these days a lot of people think, oh, go online, but the messages online come at you thick and fast. And you could argue that it, to an extent, you kind of get used to it and it goes straight through. But when you're driving along in your car, you're focusing on the road, ideally, and that is pretty much the only message coming at you from inside your car, at least. So you get that focus of the listener's mind. And if it's repeated over time, people get to understand your brand through the voices, through the sounds of that advert.
Yeah. And I find radio advertising is well done. It's entertaining. It's fun to listen to.
Yeah,
I don't know. I've heard some of Will's ads before.
It's very creative, you know, and so
I'm glad that worked for you.
I'm also always shocked because I've done a couple radio appearances over the years talking about restaurants and food in town and stuff like that. And I'm always surprised like how many people hear it. Like I'll just be walking down the street and they're like, hey, I heard you on the radio. And I'm like, who listens to the radio at 7 a.m? But I'm like, everyone does, I guess, you know? Like,
it's not going away. And it has its place even in our world of the social environment with those names. it's still part of my everyday, and it just works.
And it's and it's true to say, I haven't checked recently, but the figures nationwide seem to have stabilized and it's found its market. You know, when I'm at home, I always listen to radio because I don't want to constantly listen to my top 40 playlist. I might want to listen to just generally have something on in the background that it's just there, and I know the presenters and it's friendly, but they take care of it. I don't have to press play or subscribe. It's just it's there, and you know them, and there is a place for that.
You know, just like your reels on Facebook or TikTok, it's one thing that I think I enjoy about, I'm sad to admit, is you never know what's next. It just keeps coming at you, right? And that's what radio does.
It
just keeps coming at you, and I find that it's quality. You know, you get, and you have choices. So it's a great place to be.
Love it. And again, it's free, no subscription. With all the subscriptions,
that's always worked for me
these days. $0 a month.
But like they say, if it's free, you're the product.
Right?
But I'm happy to do so because it works for me. It gives me what I need, and I'm happy to pay the price.
There we go. Absolutely. That's very true. Okay.
Well, we're going to rush this then.
So,
going to put me on the spot. Okay. 10 questions.
Go.
Sure.
No, I just wanted to talk about, we'll get back into just some of the challenges that you found there.
Right.
There's probably hundreds and hundreds, as you've mentioned a bunch of them, just like
the
little things that refrigerator breaking down or produce going bad. Staff calling in sick.
I often described it as housekeeping. You're never done. You get it to a certain standard, and then you walk away for a second, and then you got to do it over again, right?
And quite literally, you walk in, people in very busy supermarkets say that you know, especially at Christmas, Easter, you know, stock the shelves. You go back for 10 minutes, and it's been decimated, which is a great thing for a business,
right?
Go back to it again.
But I think in every store, it's attention to everything. It's the details. So you have to have all of your systems need to be efficient. You need to have the routine. And a challenging part, which I really enjoyed, was taking new staff, and you know, training them, running them through, this is how we do things, and then learning from them too, right?
Isn't that the best?
Yeah,
right?
is that, you know, when you build a team and everybody's working towards things, it's a lot of fun. It's very rewarding.
How much branding did you have?
For the store itself?
For the whole store. Did you say, you know, this is how you greet people? This is how people should view us? This is our ethos? Everyone's family? Or, I mean, what was the personality of the store, if it had one?
You know, I think that something I recognize, I don't want to say inherited, but something Gord Moore used to say on the back of his business card was, you don't have to buy to come by and say hi.
Oh,
right. So it was all about the people. Like, just take the time. Like, it was never if one of my staff members had stopped working to visit with a customer, that was encouraged.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. We still had to get our work done.
Yeah,
you know, it was
I love
balance,
that.
but it also made their days worthwhile too.
Yeah.
Whereas they couldn't. You know, it's nice. I had an encounter at Canadian Tire yesterday, and with long-term employee there, and we stopped to chat, and it was great. And you know, I felt it's value added. Right?
I feel that's the reason you go to a small place.
Right.
It's about that customer service and just feeling a part of it, you know, like that.
Canadian Tire is not small. That's a big store, but they have that personality, and they've been a fixture in the community for decades, right?
Do you think that's allowed or encouraged, or
I got that feeling.
Yeah.
You know,
nice,
I've never been. I've never
yeah.
worked there, but the employee was certainly comfortable with it.
Well,
and
that
was
is
good.
a wonderful thing, because
we didn't overstay the welcome, but
of course. Well, you say there is a balance between the needs of the business and the other customers, but also providing a service in the community that's for the betterment of the community. And I'll tell you this, you know, I'm not a lover of Amazon, but if Canadian Tire were to say, no, we are just, you can't talk to people, self-checkouts, that I go, well, brilliant, well done, I'm just going to go Amazon because it's cheaper.
Right.
The fact that they're there, they're paying income tax, they're paying tax in this country, they're actually providing a value added I will do the opposite. I will say, you know what, I'm actually not going. I'm shutting out Amazon, even if it's more expensive. I don't know if it is. Sometimes it isn't. I'm going to go to Canadian Tire because I appreciate that they are providing a service that is helping members of this community.
That's my whole going downtown, because you go into the stores, you're paying a little bit more, but you're going in there for the service. And I imagine that's how you ran your store, right? Because you seem like this guy who probably came up and shook everyone's hand when you walked in the...
Tried to. I'd be stuck in my office tending to the books, basically. There's a lot of paperwork involved in
Was there
business,
really?
right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
and it's
that hasn't gone away.
So it's manual.
Yeah, a lot of it. We had
doing
computers
things.
then, and we were able to put that together pretty good. But as that advanced, it became a useful tool, and that's where then one of the answers to your question would have been the handling products. When you have a store full of food products that are 8,000 listings or something, and I don't know how many thousand of them might be perishable, where they have a shelf life that is quite short. Managing that is your key to success.
Wow.
If you can't manage your perishable goods, you will not make money and you will go broke. Because there's not enough margin on the other side to pay what you throw out.
What is the margin like on fruit and veg?
Yeah, it varies, right? If you're talking a neighborhood store or even a smaller city stores like we have, the labels we're used to, Thrifties, Quality Foods and that's a whole different environment. And they've done really good at changing what they used to be, right? If you look back at what they used to be, the food centers they were, compared to what they are now in the easy consumables, like that's where their margins, I don't have that much data on that. We never got to participate in that so much, but for basic groceries and that, it's razor thin.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot, and you have to have a lot of turns to get the money back.
It's such an important service to the community. In certain areas of the United States, if you go into small town America, in Montana or just Arkansas, random places in the middle in predominantly rural areas, you'll find one thing that every town has in common, however small the town is. There'll be a Dollar General. And there's more Dollar Generals than there are McDonald's. And unfortunately, one thing where a lot of these towns will have a small provincial grocery store. It might be unique to that town. There might be an owner that own like 9 or 10, but they'll have their own little grocery store, and they'll be very much like the Courtenay Country Market was. They'll have a little bit of everything. Right. Now, one reason Dollar General is ripping out the heart of small town America is because they plump themselves down. They only put sometimes only one member of staff in the whole store to stock and to serve people, and they plump down there, and they do their canned goods in so many lines, so much cheaper than a small town grocery store could ever do. But they forget about the fresh, and so what happens is people in the town go, well, they're going to buy 99% of or 90% of their stuff from the Dollar General, but they're going to go to the supermarket for all the fresh because it's the only place for miles that you can get that fresh food. Well, you know what? That grocery store shuts down because it is a part of an overall offering. We will take the hit with getting this fruit and veg that needs to shift before it expires, but please go on into the store and buy the stuff that actually makes us money. When people only go in and buy a section of it, suddenly the business model is shot and it shuts down. And then you get a rural food desert where only Dollar General is available.
I think with any small operation, independent restaurants, food markets, etc., you constantly work at it. Find out what's working and don't waste your time and your dollars on things that aren't working. If they're not buying something from you, don't get your dollars back out of it and redeploy.
I mean, Lord Sugar in the UK, big entrepreneur, says, smell what sells. He used to just go in London in the 70s, buy a load of stuff, sell it at a market. And if it sold, he more. And if it didn't sell, just get rid of it. Move on to the next thing. Smell what sells.
It's constant attention, right? There's you can't just take, there is no cookie cutter for an independent operation. You have to customize it. You have to find out what's different, right? And brand it and that. One of the jewels that I reference and really haven't seen a place as equal, Coombs It used to be
Oh yeah.
Comox Country Market, and it's now Goats on the Roof is their official name.
Yeah.
They rebranded somewhere along the way, but that store used to be closed through the winter. It closed in October and opened in May. And they did a booming business in the summer. That location is ideal with the traffic to the West Coast.
And it's a spot, right?
It's a spot now.
People just go there to check out
I
the
go in
goats.
there because even today, there's just so many unique items in there, right? You're not buying... You buy it when you're there. The price is the price. You don't care, right? I want that. Thank you. Okay,
I mean, you'd think if they said this is a grocery store in your mind, you'd say, well, they're competing with quality foods down the road in Qualicum. Absolutely not.
No, they're a different market.
You don't drive from here to go to Quality Foods in Qualicum. Or Qualicum Foods, as it's called there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what a story that is. That was one of
story.
BC's premier grocery stories.
Do you know how much do you know about that?
Well, quite a bit, I like to think.
We'll have to get you in for that as well, because that is really interesting as well.
Yeah, well, maybe they would do something about it, right?
It'd be great people to talk to, for sure.
I think the owners are retired now, but...
Right, we have 32 minutes in.
Oh, we're doing well.
Yeah.
Good.
I have one more question.
Yeah, please do.
I
Please
would
do.
love to know how when you started in 95, right?
Right.
How the market changed and like how much more local food became more relevant in your store.
Oh, good question.
Right. Yeah. We always had the mindset that we would be happy to support local suppliers, right? When we could, it was a very brief amount of time. Local kind of spreads out a bit too, because we used to have a driver, just an independent businessman who used to load up a 10-ton truck full of peaches and apricots and things like that from the Okanagan. From I think he came from the Karameas area of the
Right.
It's still the Okanagan, right?
Yeah.
And drive it on the ferry, bring it up island, and distribute to our stores up here. But that was just a few weeks of the summer. Locally here, there just wasn't a lot of fresh produce that was not just a blip on the calendar, right?
Yeah.
And when that was, we supported as much as we could, but it was really only a few cases out of the whole year, right? Like for lettuce, we'd only have lettuce supply for a few weeks, and then it would be dried up, right? It's just not a long growing season here.
It would be so different now in terms of expectations.
Right.
To have it labeled, this is from the Comox
Well, and
Valley.
I think in 95, the farms weren't there at all.
Yeah.
There was a couple major, big farms that sold off, but there wasn't like the little boutique places that we have now.
No,
Isn't that wonderful?
No, and that's a tough business too.
Yeah.
To operate a boutique. Canadice Farms, what a remarkable story that is.
Yeah.
I mean, he and they're still doing it, right?
Yeah.
Good old Alan, eh?
Yeah, it's that I used to sell his products.
Wow.
That was in the early 2000s. We tried to bring as much in, and that was a more consistent supply. So it was nice to have that. And local distributors who lived here too, we would support them. Anything they wanted to sell, we'd give them room, right?
Great.
And it wasn't never big numbers. We weren't a big store, for volume. But
See, I remember going with Alan to do a delivery with him once.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was like very eye-opening too.
Right.
That man is very
hardcore. I don't
hardcore.
know when he could sleep.
I don't know.
That,
I remember I met him up at Gunther Brothers. They have a little office outside at 5:30 in the morning.
Right.
And we answered phone calls till 6 or 7 when the plant opened. Then we got in there and started packing the refrigerator van, and then it was off. And then we dropped at we actually stopped at the market for lunch there.
Right.
As he was doing his drop off, and I was like, this is incredible.
Wow.
Hertel Meats in the Arrington area there is where they are, and they're a solid local business on the island that's held their space for a long time. But it's no one knows where that future goes, right? It's tough. It'd be tough for kids in these days and their wants and needs and opportunities to say, yeah, I'm going to be a farmer, right? It's tough. So
It is, yes.
Yeah, more power to them if they can keep it going. It's nice to see I think any store will support them as much as they can. Yeah.
All right. Well, Dean, we're going to find another reason to get you in here somehow.
For sure. This has
Yeah.
been such
Oh,
a...
You
well,
seem like
thanks.
your
am-
knowledge is very broad.
Random trivia. Yeah.
Wow.
It's been a
Yeah,
lot
thanks
of
for
fun.
having me. It's
Yeah.
great to bring
Thank
back
you.
the memories.
Yeah.
It's been very vivid. Yeah.
It's a very, very interesting subject,
Yeah.
and it's an angle we haven't particularly shone a light on before.
Yeah.
So we were usually very much on the farm side or on the farmer's market side,
Right.
but that grocery store angle.
Well, food
great.
affects everybody.
Yeah,
sure
Right?
enough.
There's
Does,
not
yeah,
one
100%.
person who can go without it.
All right, so thanks very much.
Great.
Let's let you put a little plug in
Yeah,
about
please do.
yourself. So if someone's, because now that you're in the mortgage business and
Well, it's,
And you have been for some time, haven't you?
yeah,
Was it
15
over
years
15
now.
years? Yeah.
15 years
Wow.
as a broker. And
Expert level.
what I have determined about that is that it's a people business.
Yeah.
And that's what food selling is too. Whether,
Yeah.
we talked about that. And so I just love helping people. And so I spend countless hours learning how I can be valuable to my customers, what I can bring to the conversation, things they may not have considered. Manage what is a very big commitment for them, or help manage.
Biggest commitment of their lives.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and I think it's one of those categories where people know why they need a mortgage. They know they need a mortgage with the lowest rate because that would make it less expensive. And then they leave the conversation there.
Yeah.
It served its purpose. They're now in their house and they just make their payment, right? And that's where there's more service to be provided there. And and the mortgage brokering business is the best area to get that from because brokers work for their clients. We're not employed by the bank.
Yeah.
So the bank, I don't think I'm bashing anybody to say the bank doesn't really have an incentive to see you pay off their loan any
Right.
quicker.
Right.
There's not going to be a big conversation
Yeah.
about that, right? But that's where things can really change for a family's finance. And I'm happy to, have those conversations and see what can be talked about and done.
And I can attest to that. Like it's not just words. There are very real ideas that are there. And I talk with my fiance Eva, and I'm like, well, I want us to be a family that deal with money like wealthy people, and maybe even be wealthy at some point. And it involves doing certain things that are actually relatively simple, especially if you have a guide. And Dean is one such person.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy to do it. Yeah. And now without all of those other responsibilities of a store site and perishable goods and training staff and that is that I feel like I've now retired and can spend my time just helping people.
Yeah. You enjoy it.
That's what I
You lost a ton of weight as well.
Yeah.
Married.
Yeah, there's a lot less chocolate almonds in my future.
All those bloody almonds.
That's right.
Oh, God. All right. But anyway, this has been wonderful. So thank you very much as always. Again, thank you to 98.9 Jet FM, the Comox Valley's best rock. If you're interested in real estate from the buying side or the selling side as well, contact me. I'm very happy to help you.
Oh, I have to list all my things now?
Yeah, go on, list all your stuff. North Island College.
Well, check out North Island College. We got this January, I've got my level ones. We're going to open up the bistro. So that's coming up. So if you want to check
nice.
that out.
Oh,
nice
yeah.
3-course meal. I think it's $34.
Cheapest chips.
Cheapest. Yeah, and
Bistro
it's a
is my
great.
favorite food group.
And then, of course, check out Locals Restaurant at the Old House. Always a great meal and such a beautiful spot. What else do I do? Oh, North Vancouver Island Chefs Association.
He's getting cocky now.
That's what I do.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for listening
thank you.
to the Edible Valley podcast.
Take care.